Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing? I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A couple of comments over there, ever so slightly, let's just say on the nose there, whoever does that intro, doing a good job of it, absolutely, from Michael Robert Tipton chiming in there, wishing us a good show as well. Calvin Williams chiming in with us as well. Good afternoon to you as well. Also dropping that like there on the page. We do appreciate it on the Facebook. Helps with all those algorithmic things. And we got a lot to talk about today. Some things that have been slightly backburner but are ever so important here. Eckler sounds like a quarter going into a video game. That's a line on the audio being too loud. Let me know, because if so, shouldn't be. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff we're talking about here today. Just right off the bat, in case there's any concern about this still, you may have been hearing about a police response happening out at Bel Air High School in the Lower Valley, based off of a text message about the potential of an armed subject in the area. That school has been placed on lockdown, but I believe that lockdown is now being or has been lifted at this point here. So that is, I mean, there was a lot of concern about it, absolutely, because, yeah, this kind of thing happening would be certainly generating a lot of concern about this. Our news partners over at KFOX 14, quoting Sergeant Kiki Carrillo, saying a call like parents are natural, a call like this, parents are naturally alarmed. There was nothing confirmed happening at the school here, and KFOX 14 crews were on the scene here, of course. But again, that lockdown either being lifted or has now been lifted is the information coming out of Bel Air High School. But of course, this is not the only such incident that has happened, not necessarily locally, but somewhat regionally and even further out in recent days. I know there was a report out of Cranston and other places around the country where there were seemingly copycat things going on. So it's important, I think, for you all, as very much, Kelvin Williams putting it everybody's nerves on edge. Get ready for a lot of false reports. That is entirely possible in this situation. Again, this seemingly based off of a text message in our local situation here. So yeah, stay on your toes is a good way to put it here, and I wouldn't be surprised if more of this happens before it goes down less. Again, why, at least on this program, we have some compunction about even discussing details about certain things because of, well, how much it can then seemingly inspire further on, even as today, beyond this immediate news going on right in our region here. There are further concerns about what actually went on within the Uvalde shooting and tragedy with the killing of 19 children, of course, earlier this week, with a news conference today raising more questions than answers about what exactly happened out, including some now lawmakers calling for federal investigation to look into the situation. We'll get into that and a whole lot more, plus some things that have been backburnered with this week's news, but probably shouldn't have been otherwise, and definitely need to be refocused on now, including something actually coming out of City Council that I will admit I had missed, and furthermore is getting now some national attention as I'm seeing reports coming at it on new estimations of the, Title 42 staying in place, but they still impact seeing here right in the region, right across the border here, with increasing amounts of, well, migrant population potentially waiting to cross, creating probably more of a tinderbox situation than we may have already expected. We'll get into the numbers there as well. Already saying it's every little thing now. Kids need to watch what they post. Glad they take it seriously. I mean, yeah, there's kind of a balance to be struck here because, of course, the effort that it takes to post something versus the effort it takes to respond to it is incredibly disproportionate. And if some bad actor were to consider that, well, I'm just going to overwhelm things, that's been a couple of movie plots over the years, though not necessarily in this specific circumstance. So, yeah, taking it seriously is about the only real responsible action to do because, I mean, you're taking luck in your hands. If you say, well, we think this is a hoax, we won't respond. And then if something does happen, well, you gambled and you lost, and there are lives at stake here. We'll probably have some more commentary on that as well, seeing some more analysis coming out about, again, as there are some questions about the Uvalde situation, the exact timeline there, what exactly does a response need to be? But we'll be delving further into that. Also, those wildfires in the region causing impacts to, well, even our area. I've been coughing myself more lately, plus what the weather forecast has to say about that, and even shuttering some facilities that I know people who are going to in our area we're going to be going to regionally. So a lot of impacts coming from that. So that's just a little bit of what we've got on the list and talking about here today. Plus, just ever so slightly important, a major road project getting going that is going to, well, talking about heading northward and into the land of enchantment, going to be causing some very serious, probably holdups and more in the coming days, weeks, and, well, years, actually, is the short way to put it, because that is what it is going to take here with the I-10 widening project scheduled to begin soon. Calvin Williams saying, it's amazing to think my sarcasm could get me arrested. See, that's also the give and take here. I know that in this whole Uvalde situation, there's been a lot, Calvin Williams saying, coughing from the smoke or long COVID. Now, because whenever I take my antihistamine, I seem to clear up, but you can see it in the air here. So I'm not as worried about that. I've never tested positive for it. So knock on wood, that continues. But now I think, you can even see the haze. I saw it last night as the sun was going down, just the layers of it, because we've got wildfires not quite surrounding us again. We had that recent-ish one in Anthony's Gap that I believe is out, or at least very well contained. Then we also had, we have ones going on in the Gila National Wilderness. We still got some going on in northern New Mexico. Like, it is a mess of a season when it comes to fires right now, which you may remember, I believe on the day that the Uvalde shooting happened, that is actually where Governor Greg Abbott was in the Amarillo area talking about, well, wildfires and the issues that are also facing other parts of the state of Texas as well. So a lot to talk about here. We have barely even just scratched the surface on some of the things we're mentioning here today. So we'll get into a lot more of it. And we do have a call on the line here. We'll take calls a little bit later in the hour as we usually do. But if you got a burning question, we might be able to get to you during the breaks there. Otherwise, yeah, a lot going on. And again, we'll delve further into that Uvalde situation and a whole lot more of it, because the questions coming out of it and what response, and particularly what's essentially the procedure needs to be, and what can be done to prevent situations exactly like this in the future, all coming into sharp focus as we get further along with it here. So I think we'll go ahead and take that first break of the hour here right now. Again, a lot of comments coming in over on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch are where you can leave those comments. Again, phone calls a little bit later in the hour, but we'll make it clear when we got those open here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk to chime in, and we'll really start delving into the subjects, taking up this whole first segment, just laying them out here, so we'll really give into it in this next segment. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690. Did get asked yesterday, but we were very much deep into the topics there, about that new do I'm sporting, and of course, the services that I trust over with Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. Even in these times when things seem to be difficult, you got to take care of yourself. And this is one of the ways that I find, well, professional demands, of course, are part of it if you're looking at us over on the social media, but also just making me feel good and really better able to tackle whatever comes at it. One less thing to worry about, among other things. But it's not even just get it over with. It's an enjoyable experience. I like going out there to Gentleman's Republic because, well, they really do treat you like a king for a day and more, because I, of course, set up my appointments and keep going back with them. Let me tell you about my last experience there. Greeted at the door with a nice ice cold, their own red beer mix that they have made, completely proprietary. It is good stuff, and I encourage you to try it because with those higher temperatures we're getting into, it's definitely red beer season. Plus, you also might think about the location. I talk about the location as all. So definitely I go there primarily for, what we're talking about with the grooming services, expert hair and beard grooming, but also they've got the venue now. So if you want to even have your own event in this space, beautiful Trost building, restored, but get that sense of space and place. Again, you just got to go check it out. You can give them a call at 915-532-3000, 915-532-3000, or find them online at gentsrepublic.com. Tell them I sent you, gents, Gents, republic.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On North Desert Boulevard, north of Trans Mountain at Las Muchas, there's a crash that's blocking the left lane. Artcraft westbound at the 10, an accident there is slowing traffic. Joe Battle Boulevard southbound at Montwood, that earlier crash has been moved off to the right. McCombs northbound north of Salem at Blackhawk Drive. That crash with injuries is partially blocking the intersection there. Take Sun Valley Drive as an alternate. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Want to impress your friends? Tell them you listen to Red Pilled America, the best storytelling show in the country. This week, we tell the story behind the laptop from hell. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
Hey El Paso, Ivan Ochoa here, General Manager of Southern Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Once again, we were El Paso's #1 dealer in Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram sales in April. Thank you El Paso and surrounding areas.
The Memorial Day sales event starts now at Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. And there's never been a better time to get more for your old car, truck, or SUV. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we want it. So you can save big on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. 2022 Ram 1500 trucks with 0 APR for 60 months. All new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer full-size SUV with third-row seating. 0 APR for 60 months. 0 payments for 90 days. Plus, we have aggressive lenders with great rates and terms, even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Southern Park Drive or online at southernparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $16.67 per thousand financed. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
On the new true crime podcast Betrayal, a woman chronicles her fairy tale romance gone horribly wrong. Her husband's secret life destroyed their marriage, shook their community, and ultimately sent him to prison.
Going through Spence's emails, Snapchat, whatever I could get my hands on. Just a punch in the gut every single time.
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Search, browse, and email privately, all for free with the DuckDuckGo app.
When Natalie was diagnosed with cancer, she took control of her health. When Natalie wanted to help other people with cancer, she became a doctor. When Natalie wanted to make quality care affordable, she became a researcher. When Natalie's patients needed innovative treatments, she found them. Conquer Cancer supports researchers like Dr. Natalie McKenzie so we can conquer every cancer for every patient everywhere. Cancer research saves lives. Learn more at conquer.org. That's conquer.org.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to get at the program. Of course, we do have those comments coming in over on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you're wanting to comment over there and in those locations, Calvin Williams, Ed Clore, RJ, Michael Robert Tipton, and more tuning in, chiming in over there, dropping those likes, which we do appreciate. Patricia Duran, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, and Calvin Williams. Just helps us with, well, all those algorithmic things as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the Borderland. Comment coming in over on the 690 page as well. Again, there's a lot of places we put this out here, actively monitor some of the other ones here. Marianne McGinnis asking about some of our other programming. Yeah, we still have Sean Hannity and Mark Levin on here. Sean Hannity right before this show and Mark Levin right after. So if you're looking for them, again, any questions about that, you can go to our website, ktsmradio.com, which is another place you can also find us backup kind of thing here. Anyway, getting back to the subjects at hand here again, just to make it perfectly clear, the situation largely resolving over at Bel Air High School after there was apparently a threat made and responded to by El Paso police officers, and a lockdown was in place. And yeah, nerves on edge, as someone had said previously, definitely a part of it here. But again, that lockdown now either being removed or is removed at this point, with no apparent incident having actually taken place besides the threat. But that, of course, does come on the heels of the situation and the still evolving understanding of what happened within Uvalde, Texas, and the Robb Elementary School there. We had some reporting on our area coming out from our news partners and such about incidents happening around it and involving it. And now it might be a little bit more complicated than that is, well, the simple answer to a very complicated situation. One of the things that has been consistent throughout is that the shooter in this case, the alleged 18-year-old, was killed by a Border Patrol officer. How that exact circumstance came to be is also not terrifically clear at this point. Some increasing talk and evidence coming out on social media that you may have seen and also being reported on by our news partners about, well, parents being restrained from going in, and the roughly 40 minutes to an hour it took from the initial incident to the final response being effectuated. So we have told some things on air that we had confirmed into our newsroom that are now put further in question. The governor said them, among other things. So the fact that this situation is still that much in flux, the exact timeline here, you would not be at all blamed for being confused about what exactly happened, because those timelines have gotten further confused even after the news conference that had today. So as there are some that have been calling for, well, federal investigation into this, Joaquin Castro of Texas calling for that specifically, quote, in light of conflicting accounts from Texas authorities. Yeah, it is a bad situation. A very bad situation that is being somewhat compounded, I would have to say, by this lack of clarity. So we're going to hold off on any further judgments here. I mean, the one thing that seems to be is that the shooter did gain access to the building. That seems to be consistent anyway, through an unlocked door in the building. And that is, of course, generating some of the response that is coming out from elected officials and further. But as is often the situation with many of these cases, clarity is fleeting at best, though this is a little bit more than usual, I would have to say. Calvin Williams saying, watch the threat, even joking around. El Paso judges have no sense of humor. Yeah, I'd agree with that absolutely here. And if anything, there's been responses happening before this point. You may remember something that we've talked about on this program previously, I want to say late last year and early this year, about some of those criminal situations where there weren't necessarily threats being made at a school, but law enforcement actions. They did include some threats. Now that I'm remembering it more clearly, something posted on social media, but, criminal actions happening in a parking lot near a school and the potential pursuit of the actors by police nearby other schools, leading to whole area school districts going on lockdown. This, I think, only compounds that as well. Some other comments coming in on the whole I-10 situation. Yeah, that one is going to be a little bit of a mess here just because we have the comments coming in on it. Let's delve into that here. But putting a pin in Uvalde, there are still a lot of questions on exactly the timeline. So we're going to be waiting to see more on what is being reported and what is coming out. I know that some previous people from here in town, Bill Malugin, among others, who I worked briefly with, more along like colleague style, never directly with, but went to at least a couple of news conferences I can think of back in my time in TV, posting about that these are some of the stranger news conferences going on these days. And yeah, the back and forth and the inconsistency of information means that there needs to be a lot more clarity gained very quickly, or there's going to be other issues when it comes to this. But further on again, yeah, John Browsland saying, please remember that there were police in other parts of the school removing students to protect them from the shooting. Again, the whole timeline and situation there very much being, well, the understanding of it is fluid at this point. So we're going to be reporting on as we have more, again, particularly confirmed facts here and talking with our news partners and getting what they have on this here. But again, the inconsistency between the times here is not helping the situation, put it simply. I don't put much blame on individual police officers at any point, because them doing what they have to do and following policy may be very flawed, but, well, let's just put it this way, that there are those that, well, look at formulas based on these things. And this is one of the things I've been reading about before this, because unfortunately, as these situations do continue to a large extent, essentially time is life. that may be a formula that you've heard referred to in other ways by, well, essentially when it comes to medical response, the golden hour, now the platinum 10 minutes, as it's often put, when it comes to severe respiratory, circulatory, those kind of distresses here. And an even more urgent formula probably needs to be applied to this. What does seem to be coming out is that, it was an hour between the start of the incident, roughly, give or take, given the timelines we do have now, to when the incident was finally ended by the shot from the Border Patrol officer. Again, why the Border Patrol officer was involved is another bit of unclarity on this end. Looking to find out more if that was something a part of the response, or heard it in some places that, well, let's not get into inconsistencies here, because this is something that needs to be very solid and put out and clarified. But again, just the formulas I've been looking at about what it takes for response here is essentially from some of the guys that do these analysis that I follow and pay attention to and take a lot of faith into, essentially that time is life is what it really comes down to, and that if a response in this kind of a situation relies on 911 being called, you are going to have a worse situation on your hands that you may have otherwise. Plain and simple. It's unfortunately math at that point. That given analysis of how these incidents have unfolded in the modern era, that if there is not an immediate and very active response, that this often drags into very bad territory. And that's some more of the analysis that is coming out here. Again, there is more elected officials saying things along the lines of school hardening, further resource officers debating how and why this should be done here. RJ saying that come on, saying recommending not talking about Uvalde until the investigation has a timeline of events. Again, with that timeline not being clear now, we're going to stay away from that, but just looking into some of the, other analysis, what I'm talking about here. CBP saying that, RJ saying CBP, it took a minute for the attack team to show up and stack to enter. It doesn't happen in seconds like TV. Yeah, absolutely. Reality and fiction do not often collide in situations like this. And, Froclametta saying some of the further analysis seems coming out because Border Patrol is everywhere in the area. Some of their children are students at the school, but again, the exact timeline of involvement not clear at this point. But again, to the core point being made right now, the idea of how these things should even be formulated and prepared about. There are unfortunate similarities I'm seeing to, among other things, the Parkland shooting, or even the Stone and Marjorie Douglas, where there was a lack of response until it was felt that there were further resources coming in. I'm hoping that doesn't end up becoming the case, but just initially what it's starting to seem like as some of the consistent facts coming out that may have been the case. And honestly, I'm going to say that is not, what the teachings and, again, people that I'm looking at and trainings that I have been reading about is that the more common model these days is you go now and you go with force if possible, but waiting does not improve the situation. It's not a hostage negotiation, as you may also think about. So that is some of the analysis, and probably I know that the chief of police in Uvalde and other law enforcement officials have been catching some questions about that, and again, why it's going to be very important for there to be clarity on this timeline and a whole lot more before, too much more time passes, because the more questions remain unanswered, the more, conclusions can be drawn, and lack of action in this kind of a situation I do not see as being a totally positive one here. So again, just to put a pin into it, there's not a lot of answers on the exact timeline right now. We will be looking at that and further discussing it as it comes out. But again, that news conference today, we had answers from the governor, what we thought were firm yesterday, but given the lack of clarity, we'll have a lot more we need to get into before moving much further into the analysis there. But just looking at how the response should even be formulated for the future, one of the more useful aspects that we've been talking about here right now is Edgar Ortiz also joins us over on the Facebook page. But to those other comments that have been coming in as well, as we're waiting for further answers on the Uvalde situation, that I-10 widening project going to be going essentially from more or less Mesa to the state line is going to be starting here at the end of May. Again, adding that extra lanes to essentially match it up between what Mesa already to what the I-10 just before North Mesa on the west side ends up to, and then matching it up with the rest of it. Ed Clora saying, it's going to take 3.5 years, and Kelvin Williams saying he's got time, can't afford the gas to drive on it anyway. It's going to take a while because I don't know if you've ever done that. Again, I took that trek recently up to Las Cruces and then coming back, that's narrowing and then rewidening, because New Mexico has kind of been on the ball with it a little bit better, at least locally anyway, with putting the I-10 to 3 lanes all the way up to Cruces, of course. And then the fact that it narrows back down to 2 as it hits back into Texas and stays at 2 all the way until you hit Mesa, headed southbound, and then re-widens into 3 or more. That's where the major traffic jams that I encounter whenever I'm in that area, particularly in the afternoons, come out a lot. So that'll be the project working on that. And yeah, it's going to be some headaches. I wouldn't fully expect that there's going to be complete shutdowns here, but yeah, there's entirely possible that it will be. I mean, it's going to be adding 1 lane on either side, so technically from 4 lanes to 6 lanes, but yeah, at a cost of $174.3 million. Yep, 3 years. Well, that's the current timeline for it. Timelines in these cases do often change here. That's going to lead us to our next break of the hour here right now. We'll certainly talk more about this and all the other issues we're discussing here today, but a couple others we do want to get to, including the immigration situation that we have brewing on the border that has been a little bit backburner this week, but certainly needs to be talked about further, as well as, well, those other fires happening in the land of enchantment and affecting us here. I mentioned that a little bit, but we'll talk more about that. Monica Cervantes letting us know that, yeah, making that trek every weekend, it does get frustrating. That's, I think, putting it pretty mildly, but we'll talk about that and a whole lot more coming up after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in, a lot of stuff and discussions that we're going to continue doing, opening up those phone lines a little bit later in the program as we usually do. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. El Paso police officers are clearing Bel Air High School in the Lower Valley following a text about a potential threat, according to the El Paso Police Department. At 1:16 p.m., a text message began circulating of an armed subject in or around the school, according to police. There is heavy police presence visible around the Lower Valley School. It's just south of I-10 on Yarborough. Police say there have been no confirmed incidents at the school, and a parent staging area was set up at Santa Monica and Venado. We'll have the latest on this situation on KFOX 14. Meantime, an eerily similar scenario is playing itself out at a high school in San Antonio. And speaking with ABC News, the grandfather of the suspected Uvalde mass child killing says he was unaware his grandson had brought 2 AR rifles. Rolando Reyes reportedly has a criminal history and isn't allowed to have firearms in his house, adding he would have contacted authorities if he'd been aware. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On North Desert Boulevard, north of Trans Mountain at Las Muchas, there's a crash that's blocking the left lane. Aircraft westbound at the 10, an accident there is slowing traffic. Joe Battle Boulevard, southbound at Montwood, that earlier crash has been moved off to the right. McCombs, northbound, north of Salem at Blackhawk Drive. That crash with injuries is partially blocking the intersection there. Take Sun Valley Drive as an alternate. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. As we get closer to our holiday weekend, our area of high pressure settling in will increase our temperatures to triple digits for some parts of the borderland. It also brings us some light winds, so some of that smoke will settle into the area trapped underneath this high over the next couple days. But other than that, going into the holiday weekend, we need to be mindful of burning things because we are still looking at a high fire danger with our extreme heat and winds.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Want to impress your friends? Tell them you listen to Red Pilled America, the best storytelling show in the country. This week we tell the story behind the laptop from hell. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
COVID-19 research has come a long way, but there's still more to understand about how to treat COVID-19 effectively. The Active 6 study is researching existing medications to find out if they may help people with COVID feel better and get back to the things they love faster. The best part? It can all be done from the comfort of home. We'll send medications to your door, and you'll take surveys completely online. Learn more at active6study.org/radio. That's activ6study.org/radio.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. Regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else. Turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
Want to impress your friends? Tell them you listen to Red Pilled America, the best storytelling show in the country. This week we tell the story behind the laptop from hell. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to tune in on the show, whether you're tuning in with us on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in through all those methods there. Calvin Williams, Kathy Codry, RJ, Monica Cervantes, Edgar Ortiz, Flaco Jimenez, John Brazelton, Ed Clore, and more. If I missed anyone there, well, you can always leave more comments there. Don't worry. As well as dropping those likes, we do appreciate Rick Kern, Patricia Duncan, Monica Cervantes, Patricia Duran, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Calvin Williams as well. We do appreciate that, as it helps with all the parts we try to do in our mission to continue having live local talk radio here in the Borderland. We'll have those calls opened probably into this segment as we usually do, but if you're wanting to chime in there, well, be on hold for a minute here if you're good with that. We, of course, do have that phone number up on the top of our screen here right now, just because we're talking about some pretty heavy things. And this may be dragging things up for people or just feeling the constant of this current situation. In any case, everyone reacts to all of these things differently. So if for any reason you feel the need for you or yourself, anyone you know, to reach out and get extra support with that, we do have that Emergency Health Network crisis hotline up on our screen right now. That number to call, 915-779-1800. Again, 915-779-1800. If you have to think about it in a way, thinking like, well, I don't have the deserve, I know there's some people out there thinking like, well, I don't have it as bad as others. Think about it this way, as a, well, the old airplane speech, put your mask on first before helping those next to you, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be doing anything for those around you who do need you. So please take it into consideration if you need to. Again, 915-779-1800. But continuing to talk about some of these other situations we got developing in the Borderland region. Again, those fires, as was mentioned during the news broadcast right there, still swirling around the area and causing, among other things, a lot of impacts here. I know that Michelle Lujan Grisham, governor of New Mexico, been posting about the Black Fire, as it's being called in the Gila National Forest. As of last check, burning over 160 acres in the Gila Wilderness in southwest New Mexico, and we're getting a lot of that smoke into our area. So if you've been a little bit more verklempt lately, that might be a very serious reason why. So don't take it on yourself that it's something going wrong with you. We've been having that smoke in the air again. I saw it a lot last night. And so those fires are continuing a lot around the area, and furthermore impacting some facilities in the region. I know that there were friends that were going to be having kids up at Camp Del Wrestler, but that will be closed until further notice due to the camping restrictions that have now been set in place through, well, most of southern New Mexico. You may be thinking, well, that's like more Cloudcroft area, isn't it? But again, the conditions that are going on throughout this region are pretty significant and pretty impacting so far. So that's one physical situation we're dealing with, but another, well, more human-based, I guess you could say. Again, not to say that that fire didn't have that kind of impact or cause. That's not totally clear yet, but something that kind of flew under the radar until I've started seeing more reporting about it going on nationally and even internationally about, our situation in the border. Anytime I come across, without expecting to, mention of El Paso and the Borderland region in general in various publications, local, state, national, well, beyond local usually, I tend to take notice. And Yeah, there's the estimation as of earlier this week. Actually did come out of the city council meeting with Deputy City Manager Mario D'Agostino commenting that the estimated amount of migrants waiting in Mexico in Juarez at this point, even with the non-removal of Title 42, has reached about 60,000 and is further quoted in many publications as saying, and we can only imagine it will grow even further, talking again early this week, even if that got a little bit subsumed by a lot of the other conversation about contracts and all that kind of stuff here, up from about a month ago, about 15,000. So that is something that is, well, a developing problem. I mean, we kind of had an expectation discussing it on this program, given that, yeah, sure, Title 42 not being removed, that damage may have already been done with the expectations because, sure, migration and movements of people can happen rapidly, but it's not immediately overnight in a lot of ways. I mean, this situation didn't just happen overnight. The expectations, the marketing campaign being done by the cartels and the coyotes has certainly been ramped up for a while now with a great idea and great point to point at of, oh, by the way, this is going to be happening right now, so you definitely need to get with us so you'll be first in line. I mean, I don't know exactly the line, but you can kind of imagine how they continue convincing people to fork over the, low five figures, if not more, that come with it. So that is a concern, because even if we have the concerns on this side of the border with dealing with it, and the estimates of about the total border admissions happening per day vary between about 12 to 1,200 to 1,800, not even just in our area, but across the entire border sector for essentially asylum purposes, that pressure is not going to, just of humanity and of the strain on resources, even just south of the border, is not going to have much of a positive effect, because it has long been said, even throughout this whole process, ever since immigration has taken on the pattern that it currently still more or less inhabits, that the resources south of the border for charitable organizations and even governmental agencies has been strained pretty well, leading to that creeping sense that we have been getting about, well, essentially return to previous patterns of migration, where it's not what I've still seen. In fact, I saw it actually when headed out last weekend. Happened to come across two Border Patrol agents detaining I think it was a small group, saw at least two guys, but it seemed like there may have been more people down the hill when I got up at the exit Executive Center to then head down into the Union Plaza area. So definitely saw about two guys, but it seemed like there have been maybe more that were actually detained at that point. But that's almost more traditional, so to speak. Traditional in air quotes here. Take that heavy if you can, because that's the way it kind of used to be. The idea of crossing with little to no interaction with law enforcement officials of any stripe. I mean, that's essentially what the facilities, even in this area we're talking about, that got a lot of consternation, of course, during to the sufficiency of them during the previous administration. The cold concrete cells, etc., chain link, a lot of that, it came out of what previously was in place because of the response needed for the patterns that we were seeing at that point. So as much as there is still asylum part of this process, which involves presenting yourself to authorities and then getting court cases started, there's already been in this region anyway a sufficient reason not to get involved with it, because the denial rates in those cases are above 90%, high 90%, at least in the El Paso sector of the border when it comes to those immigration judges. And again, given the holdups, timeframes going on with this, again, 60,000 people waiting in one line, where maybe 1,000 or two, not even the full amount of that just in this sector a day. Yeah, we've seen, of course, hard to pin down exactly what percentage, but it seems like increasing incidents of other smuggling attempts, crossings, again, the way it kind of used to be. And I don't see that going on the downswing in any short order with this current situation we're looking at. Again, the major difference that is really happening here is that it's in our sector. Previous times when we have had, major demands on, like, the local nonprofit community we've been talking about with Annunciation House and such, it wasn't necessarily, we weren't the focus. It wasn't happening right here. We were an offshoot. We were a pressure relief valve, frankly, because when we had the unaccompanied migrant crisis, minor crisis, I should say, that happened in roughly about 2014 and mostly in South Texas, there were still some family units that were coming through that, and a lot of them were being then directly transported here even before processing to be used the less in demand facilities in our region in order for the processing to then happen. And so that's what's happened. And even in 2016, as we saw some different patterns emerging here, and kind of, I want to point to that more or less as the start of the whole change in regard to asylum when it comes to people seeking to enter the country for that purpose as opposed to sneaking in. Essentially, that's what I can really point to it as, in my mind anyway. It was still not primarily here. We were a pressure relief valve, but now the pressure is building right in our sector of the border. So again, this is something that came out during El Paso's most recent city council meeting, but kind of got, well, not exactly swept under the rug, but pushed to the wayside, backburnered during this. And now that I'm seeing more talk about it, yeah, there's a level of concern there given the strain on resources we've already seen in this area. So yeah, we're going to keep seeing that probably for a while longer given these numbers here. Kevin Williams saying, luckily we still have Border Patrol to monitor the border and not filing paperwork somewhere. Hope that still continues to be the case here. Some other comments coming in. Catherine Codry saying America has a mental health epidemic. You know, that's a point that has been coming up here, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. We clearly have mental health issues, given the stigma on it, that have gone unaddressed, but I'm not sure just in, well, there have been other examples coming from other countries, if you're referring to, I'm assuming there, in this case, to the, well, school shooting situation and gun violence in general, that is necessarily the locus of it. But we'll get into that here in just a second. Kevin Williams further saying, smoke ain't no joke, so I'll have lingering effects from Iraq. Absolutely. And RJ referring to other shootings that have happened here. Tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. And coming out of this break, we'll go ahead and open up that phone line as we usually do at this point during the program here. So if you wanted to call in to our show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We'll get to the calls we got and a lot more of the comments here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Of course, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Wanting to chime in, social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, or again, that phone number, 915-544-5876. Back after this break with more.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
North Desert Boulevard, north of Trans Mountain at Las Muches. A crash there is blocking the left lane on Trans Mountain eastbound. At the 54 Gateway, an accident reported. There's a large semi block on the right shoulder, Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Lee Trevino. And that accident at Zaragoza and westbound Tierra Este has cleared, but there's still a large backup on Zaragoza northbound. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Want to impress your friends? Tell them you listen to Red Pilled America, the best storytelling show in the country. This week we tell the story behind the laptop from hell. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
If you owe back taxes to the IRS or the state, here is a very important message.
IRS tax problems don't simply go away. If you have years of unfiled back tax returns or owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, listen up. The government has the power to garnish your wages, freeze your bank account, and in some cases, they can now revoke your passport. This is John Zandy, president of Detaxify. Detaxify specializes in the Fresh Start program where we help struggling taxpayers get out of collections or settle their tax debt. If you're being audited, have years of unfiled tax returns, or dealing with threatening letters from the government, you may need professional tax relief representation. My team at Detaxify can stop the tax collectors and stop the threatening letters from the IRS or state. Call me now for a free consultation.
Just like John said, if you owe back taxes to the IRS or the state, call Detaxify at 800-786-2350. 800-786-2350. Call Detaxify for a fresh start at 800-786-2350. That's 800-786-2350.
Hey Texas, this is Eric Burton. And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas. We've partnered with Don't Mess with Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean. So come on, join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads. It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter-free. Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
You know about their great deals on windows and doors, and now the Window Depot has everything for your complete home remodel. The Window Depot is a one-stop warehouse with the lowest prices and biggest inventory on in-stock laminate, butcher block, granite and quartz countertops, plus flooring and tile to finish your project. They also offer a huge selection of in-stock cabinets, or their designers can special order your cabinetry in a variety of colors and styles. Stores are open Monday through Saturday, but they also offer online ordering and no contact delivery. The Window Depot, more than a window store.
Want to impress your friends? Tell them you listen to Red Pilled America, the best storytelling show in the country. This week we tell the story behind the laptop from hell. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to get at the show here, particularly now that we've got that phone line open. The number to call, 915-544-5876. 544-KTSM is the number to call. And a lot of questions coming in over on the social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And among other ways, and you can comment and chime in over there or just see the broadcast and some of the other comments that come in. Because, the Facebook page, primarily facebook.com/Talk El Paso, is where the Skeptic Squad live and where the Thunderdome comments comes in every day. Calvin Williams asking, whatever happened to all the government-run psych wards? John Browson responding that the ACLU went to federal court and shut them down in the 1970s. I do remember some connections, a bit before my time, but having read a bit up on them, on somewhat of a shutdown of them in a large way by, during the Reagan administration and following up one. So I think there's a couple of things you can point at there, but, again, mental health has never not been an issue in this country. There's a quote that I've been thinking about a lot lately, that essentially we have never met a truly sane human, given the fact that the lives that we still live and the fact that we are still very much influenced by environments and unideal circumstances. Let's say that there's no one who doesn't come out with some level of trauma in some way, shape, or form. Not that that excuses any of this, but tell you what, we'll get into that more a little bit later when it comes to the mental health part of it. And get into those calls here right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Well, Andrew,
Mm-hmm.
This is, of course, is not an original thought, but once again, what was the best answer to the threat of a bad guy with a gun in Uvalde?
Yep, it took literally someone entering the building in order to, stop him. It takes counter efforts to stop it. I know that the short-term answer is good guy with a gun, of course. Yeah.
Good guy with a gun, sure. 70% of schools in Texas are in gun-free zones. And all school shootings are schools in a gun-free zone. Don't you think it's a good idea maybe that we need to start allowing schools to have teachers, administrators, anybody that has been vetted by the school to carry guns? Somebody that wants to make a name for themselves by having a greater number of victims is going to have a better chance of being successful if he knows that there won't be anyone there that can stop him.
Yeah, I get what you're saying in general, but...
No, hold on. One real quick thing.
Sure.
In 2013, the state of Texas passed a plan that was known as the Guardian Plan.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know this. It was intended to solely to provide hand-picked armed educators, employees, the ability to defend themselves and students in the event of an active shooter or active killer. Wouldn't it have been nice if, and probably this guy may not, in his state of mind, he probably would have done it anyway but if he knew this was a school that was in a gun-free zone, he probably would be more likely to attack that school if he knew that it was some place where there was going to be guns that are going to kill him, because educators are armed, because people on campus are armed. He probably may not have gone to that school. He may have gone to another school. But there's the school safety training is known as the Guardian Plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's intended solely to provide hand-picked armed educators the ability to defend themselves. So every parent in this town should be petitioning their school boards to allow this plan to take effect. The state of Texas will pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
There's money to be paid. They'll pay for it. If you want to protect the students, if you want to protect your children in school, this is the best way to do it. Make it to where people will think twice, maybe 3 or 4 times before they come into your school, because they might get killed quickly.
Yeah, and it was also mentioned previously this week by another caller, also the school marshal plan, often getting talked next to each other here. Had heard about them previously. I was not aware of much of an implementation of them, and that has borne out in some of the stats that have come out since, and others have brought up here. Let me just say this. I am fully a proponent, and have been for a long time, of the idea of taking personal responsibility for your safety and security in whatever way that makes most sense to you, and would not be opposed to someone taking advantage of this and saying, I am going to do this, or even a whole school saying that we are going to do this and be a part of it here. But the reason I am then hesitant to say, and therefore it fixes it here, is because we clearly have a teacher problem as it is. I mean, there's been no secret in Texas. They've had the whole task force on the teacher recruitment issue. And the hesitancy, I have to say that, yes, 100%, let's go forward with this, is then the inclination to then essentially for lawmakers to say, okay, it's done with. Because what lawmakers need to do is to step up and say, we are going to deal with this, even if we are going to still have this kerfuffle over gun laws, whether or not all that kind of a thing. If we're going to say that, yes, we're going to have schools and they need more resources, that we should be arming anyone, to say that therefore teachers should be the sole responsibility for it is a massive mistake. Teachers are overworked as it is, and then putting them in charge of this solely would be not adding a benefit to the situation that exists even outside of the idea of this. So again, I'm not necessarily opposed the idea of this being further implemented and further utilized, but what I want to see legislators do is say, we are going to put forth a comprehensive school security plan, and not this, local standards put into place, saying, no, these are going to be the standards that we're going to be both A, enforcing, and B, providing the funding for. That's the real rubber hits the road moment, because a lot of, we have expectations, and you got standards you got to meet, figure it out on your own. That is not going to cut it. I know that there's been some comments coming out from Ted Cruz, the governor, and others like that about, yes, we have things we need to do here, but if it doesn't come down with funding and a plan of action and a plan of implementation, it is going to fall short.
This is passed in 2013. It is fully funded, and it's not forcing teachers to take up guns or arms. It says that if you are, and there's plenty of teachers, I know there's plenty of teachers in each one of these schools that would be more than happy to have, and be able to open carry in their school. And I think I mean, if you're going to be serious about this, this is just about the only way to do that. Maybe have one entry to each school would be a good idea also. I mean, our schools, having all these entry points, there's plenty of ways to take care of that. There's funding for that. This is not, we know the causes of the school shootings. It's the rot in the American society. It's the destruction of the family. It's taking God out of our society. It's fatherless young men, youth fascination with violent videos, isolation of youth during the lockdowns, during the pandemic, and a myriad of other problems. We know that we have problems in our society. We've got to do something to help protect these innocent babies. I mean, and if you're not going to get serious, you're going to allow the politicians to decide what they're going to do and what they're not going to do, then and not take it up with your school board and make sure that these things are implemented, things that will actually have a impact on the situation, then you're going to end up with more of these.
Listen, I fully agree with you on that point here. And again, I'm making it perfectly clear, I'm not opposed to this plan or seeing it better used here. But the thing I'm concerned about is therefore our politicians who need to be doing more on this, because thoughts and prayers is not cutting it. Thoughts and prayers and then a slow return back to the status quo until the next incident. We can all see that pattern. So if they are truly going to be out here saying that, no, the teachers have got it and we're not going to do anything more. Again, teachers, if they want to take advantage of this, fully in support of that. But if that's where our politicians stop, That's where I have the issue. And again, my not exact opposition to it comes, but I have the serious concerns here. So we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more. So thank you for the point in the call. We got to take that next break. More comments and calls coming up after this break with more here on Talk El Paso, here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An accident reported Loop 375 northbound at Zaragoza, slowing traffic. Artcraft westbound at the I-10. An accident there earlier, still slowing traffic. Expect delays. On the Trans Mountain eastbound at the 54 Gateway, an accident. And I-10 westbound at McRae Boulevard, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Susan, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic is terrible.
It sure is. But on top of that, gas prices have been skyrocketing. I can't believe how expensive gas has gotten recently.
Prices at the pump are up, but I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
And does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's promo code GOLD. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GOLD for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's code GOLD for a $5 bonus.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The President and First Lady Jill Biden will travel to Uvalde, Texas on Sunday. That's the site of this week's deadly mass shooting at an elementary school. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said the Bidens will grieve with the community during this devastating time. A top law enforcement official says the suspect in Tuesday's Texas school shooting was killed an hour after engaging in a gun battle with officers. Lisa Taylor has more.
The gunman who killed 21 people inside the school was not confronted by an armed school resource officer. Department of Public Safety South Texas Regional Director Victor Escalon at a briefing gave conflicting answers on whether an officer was at Robb Elementary on Tuesday. Escalon also said he isn't sure if it took 40 minutes for a technical team to go inside the classroom.
We have not verified is that a true statement or not, or is it just rumor out there? So you got to understand, we're getting a lot of information we're trying to track down and see what is true.
Senator Mitt Romney is showing his support for some gun reform following the Texas shooting. Speaking with reporters, the Utah Republican said he supports aspects of the failed Toomey Mansion bill that was proposed in response to the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in Connecticut. The CDC is confirming 9 monkeypox cases in 7 states: New York, Massachusetts, Florida, Utah, Washington, California, and Virginia. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says all 9 cases are among gay and bisexual men and other men who have sex with men. The Pentagon's chief spokesman is praising Ukrainian forces for fighting bravely and creatively in the war with Russia.
The Ukrainians continue to fight bravely, stiffly. We've seen no diminution of their morale, of their leadership ability.
John Kirby said Russia continues making incremental progress in the eastern Donbas region. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Actor Ray Liotta is dead at the age of 67. Lisa G. reports.
According to reports, the New Jersey native died in his sleep in the Dominican Republic, where he was shooting a movie. The actor might be best known for his role as gangster Henry Hill in Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas. He also played Chicago superstar Shoeless Joe Jackson in the movie Field of Dreams. Liotta leaves behind a daughter and was engaged to be married.
A measure that looks to reform condo inspections after the tragedy in South Florida is headed to the governor's desk. The vote was unanimous in both the State House and Senate. Buildings will now be inspected after 30 years as opposed to the current 40-year requirement. For buildings within 3 miles of coastline, an inspection would be required after 25 years of occupancy. Mental health experts say it's important to know how to talk to your kids following the deadly school shooting in Texas.
Dr. Marilyn Sampillo, a pediatric psychologist at the Cleveland Clinic, says for kids under 7, there's no need to discuss what happened unless your child has been directly involved. For kids 8 and up, it's a different story.
Really approaching that conversation and sort of saying like, hey, what do you know about what just happened? Because that way you're meeting them where they're at.
Dr. Sampillo also recommends limiting media exposure, and Rutgers University psychologist Dr. Maurice Elias says teaching children empathy is also critical.
The social and emotional skills of being a good person.
Sarah Lee Kessler, New York.
Apple's CEO is revealing a big surprise for the Alabama high school where he graduated. Tim Cook is donating $100,000 to the band department at Robertsdale near Mobile. The money will help buy new saxophones, tubas, flutes, and other marching instruments. Cook graduated second in his class in 1978. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Cash. That's cash. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Coming up on the Ben Ferguson Podcast, is it possible that the Democrats and the Biden administration are purposely destroying our economy? Is it so they can gain more control over your life? That's exactly what they're doing, and I'm going to prove it. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast now.
Wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it? Want to know what a healthcare professional would say? I'm Dr. Ada Stewart, Board Chair, American Academy of Family Physicians. We want you to know it's important for all children 5 and older to get a COVID vaccine, because we know that millions of cases of COVID have been in kids. You can trust the COVID vaccine for yourself and for your kids. I do.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
iHeartRadio salutes the graduating class of 2022. Get your cap, your gown, because it's going down. A specially curated playlist featuring the biggest hits of this year you'll always be linked to. And it's not just about the class of 22. Download the free iHeartRadio app for the biggest hits from the year you graduated. 72, we got you. 95, you too. Plus, enjoy podcasts that'll help you map out your best life, whether you're just entering the real world or have been here for a while. The free iHeartRadio app. Discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love. With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals.
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
With open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world. Wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in over from that segment here. And again, if you also want to call into the show, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today. Yes, more questions than answers coming up today, particularly in the Uvalde situation, but a lot of other things and discussions going on in the circumstances we do know surrounding it, but also wildfires in the area, road expansions coming in, and a brewing serious situation involving immigration and migrants in Juarez right now. So, more than just a little bit to talk about here today. So let's get to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in, all of these. Fluffy met us on after the last call saying, if I was a teacher, I like the option of being armed here. Calvin Williams saying that I carried a gun as a cashier at a gas station against store policy. Wasn't protecting the store, I was protecting myself and those around me. Store and the state laws can vary a bit on this idea, but it's, knowing what the law is and making your own decisions on it is the basis, I could say. Maria Coleman saying that most of the shootings happen in gun-free zones. All countries have people with mental health and substance abuse issues, but some countries have more access and affordable options for treatment. Treatment in the U.S. is often expensive. Insurance companies dictate criteria to be admitted and discharged. That is a link there that I could think could be drawn between some of these issues. Again, not totally clear in this case. Again, a lot of questions still being wanted to be known about, particularly timelines for the Uvalde situation. But with a lot of these issues, having more focus and more availability of resources would be important. So again, just going to pop that up here briefly. Again, that phone number for the Emergency Health Network crisis hotline, for any reason you or anyone you know think they may need that number to call, 915-779-1800. Again, 915-779-1800 is the number to call there. Again, for any reason, should you feel the need to. But let's go back to those phone lines right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. The news segment that you just finished running had a story about how to talk to kids about what happened in Uvalde. Well, this is what I tell my kids if they were going to start school. If I had kids, first of all, they would have accompanied me on all my summer camping trips deep in the forested mountains in the middle of nowhere, where we have run into bears, snakes, coyotes, javelinas, and seen mountain lion tracks and kill. And there I would have told them about the dangers of predators and the need to be wary and cautious, and to follow my instructions should we run into any of these wild animals. I'd also have them watch Animal Planet, where they could see predators and prey in action. And then I'd explain to them that humans are also animals, and some are predators. And then I'd explain to them that while most people are good people, that there are also bad people, predators. And sometimes these predators attack and kill people. And I tell them that this could happen just about anywhere, anytime in this great America, while at school or while shopping or while at church, because in this country, this jungle, some of the country's leaders, called Republicans, who are gun lovers and people who take money from gun makers, do not do everything possible to prevent violent people from getting guns. So I'd explain to them that this is what comes with life, death, which is inevitable. And the thing that we don't know is exactly when, where, and how. Now, about AR-15s, here's where they were used: Buffalo, Boulder, Orlando, Parkland, Las Vegas, Aurora, Sandy Hook, Waffle House, San Bernardino, Midland, Ponaway Synagogue, Sutherland Springs, and Tree of Life at Synagogue. And again, obviously, you don't need an AR-15 to kill a bunch of people, as did the killer here in El Paso. So those of us, we want mandatory safety courses for people, not guns. We know that guns don't kill people. People with guns kill people. We want more thorough background checks of people, not guns. We want stricter negligent penalties imposed on people, not guns. So let's take a moment and honor the sacrifice of our brave school children who lay down their lives to protect the gun rights of a few. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call there, though I don't think you heard the full part of that newscast or the points that have been being made a little bit earlier in the day, including from our news partners, about how to talk to, your kids about these situations, if they do exist in this case, and the fact that, yes, these incidents are, tragic is an understatement in this case, and any case in when it happens, but also perspective is a little bit important. That, yes, this may have taken over a lot of thinking on this, but again, perspective here, you've listed off, let's call it about a dozen or so, lost exact count there, of the exact places you're saying that a specific weapon has been used. And yes, each of those cases, not going to have anything good to say about them, that this was good, justified, or anything of the sort here. But again, just perspective on that here. There are an estimated, last check I saw, 19 million of such weapons in the country. 19 million. If it was truly the weapon causing this, and you weren't totally getting into that, but that is just an argument that often comes up, there'd be no one left in the country because we would have been decimated, beyond decimated. We would have been completely wiped out. So yes, we can eliminate that as the cause for this. Now, mental health has often come up here, but I actually want to say that there was an interesting segment, don't often watch it, but, The Daily Show came up here, and I'm sure there are some opinions on it, and they actually had a couple of segments involved with Switzerland and going there. I know Switzerland is often brought up as a country that has tons of guns and doesn't have this issue here, so why? It must be something else here. There is one other key difference with how Switzerland deals with this than the United States does, and it is the demystification of firearms. I know some have brought up the idea of violent video games and movies and things like that. I'm not going to pin it on that because I grew up with those as well and have never felt the compunction to go out and perforate another unjust human being. Again, my situation there. But what they do in Switzerland is essentially compulsory that you have to, well, A, have a firearm, but also B, know it, how to use it, and know everything about it. So that it is no longer this totem of power as it often gets put forth here. It's not a fetish item. It is something that is a tool to be used for an incredibly specific purpose. In those cases, I mean, really the way Switzerland looks at it is as national defense. And again, other allusions have been made to Ukraine and things like that have a part of this. But again, sticking with Switzerland here for just a second, they have all ages shooting competitions where it is expected that you're going to come out and be a part of it, or at least participate in some way at some point during the year to just keep it up. They also do have very strict regulations on possession outside of, well, essentially a range or training purposes, like you're not allowed to store the ammo with it, not allowed to be stored loaded. And yes, those are a part of it, but there's not the level of issues over there. So yes, I do think there is a mental health aspect of this, but I don't find that to be the total locus of this issue. So frankly, I mean, I would agree with you on the idea of if you have the young kids in your life, teach them proper respect for things in life, but also the idea, again, we keep dipping into this, we'll call it mild nihilism today, the idea that, well, death could come for you anywhere, so therefore just accept it as a fact of life, and therefore the people who are enabling, like, yeah, you'll lose me in that level of reasoning. But teaching them facts of life and including about what firearms are, how they work, and the respect due to them, that was one of the key phrases said by people, again, in this Daily Show report, which you wouldn't necessarily expect to find an interesting analysis out of all the time. Again, respect and proper understanding. I want to say that it was an organization that I'm not trying to drag through to this, but Appleseed, Project Appleseed, said that there is a vast majority of people, even entering the armed forces at this point in this country, have little to no, often literally no firearms experience. So it's been divorced from aspects of common life. It is something that people either, again, most often takes to see online because, of course, the people at the extremes are the loudest, is either, again, as a, an object to be almost sacrosanct, or, vaguely worshipped. Like that, I've got issues with that, but otherwise to be feared and completely divorced from regular life. And I don't think either of those particular attitudes are serving us well. We got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we got to get to a lot more calls in line because we got a lot that are coming in here. So we'll get to that and a whole lot more. Again, you are listening to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot to talk about today, and we'll keep doing it. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Loop 375 southbound at Paisano, a stalled semi is blocking the left shoulder. Artcraft westbound at the I-10 Desert Boulevard. Earlier accidents still causing backups and delays, especially westbound Artcraft. I-10 westbound at McRae, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. And Lee Trevino northbound at Montwood. Heads up for an accident there. Treywood or Loma Land could be your alternates. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
It's $1,000 in your hand.
$1,000.
$1,000. No NFTs or ESGs. It's $1,000 straight to you.
That is awesome.
Listen every hour from 9 through 5 weekdays for your chance to win.
$1,000 in your hand is brought to you by Approved Auto. Ride out in your new ride in less than an hour. Get payments as low as $159 a month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you got your license and you got a job, they smell a deal. The deals are sweeter at Approved Auto, 8498 Alameda.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag. Wendy's Biggie Bag is still just $5. Get a double stack junior bacon cheeseburger or crispy chicken BLT plus 4-piece nugs, small fries, and a small drink. Grab your bag at Wendy's today. U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii.
Hey Texas, this is Eric Burton. And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas. We've partnered with Don't Mess with Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean. So come on. Join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads.
It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter-free.
Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
Are you suffering through the summer with high energy bills and a home that never cools down? The Get It Right Solar Show can show you how to save money with a Lumio solar system. The best panels at the best price, and you'll receive a free generator when you install a new solar system with Lumio Solar. Call for a free quote at 866-326-1935. That's 866-326-1935. And join us this Sunday at 10 a.m. to learn more on the Get It Right Solar Show.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Okay, ladies, we all know one of the greatest feelings in the world when a friend says, "Girl, those pants look amazing on you." And I say, thanks. They're Skechers Go Walk Wear pants. And why do I always get compliments on these casual, athletic, stretchy pants? They're made with comfortable Go Flex fabric that has compression and hold. They have 4 pockets. Plus, they're machine washable and come in extended sizes. That's the Skechers Go Walk Wear line of pants. Find yours at Skechers.com, a Skechers store, and find retailers everywhere.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to get at the show. Of course, we have that phone line open right now. That number to call there, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, the number to do so. Plus, we got a lot of comments coming in over on the social media, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, Kathy Codry, Calvin Williams, Maria Coleman, Flaco Jimenez, Ion Grimm, and more. RJ, if I didn't say that already, tuning in, chiming in over there. Also dropping those likes and reacts over on the social media, Facebook, primarily Rick Kern, Patricia Duran, Monaco Cervantes, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, and Calvin Williams. We do appreciate that there. Maria Coleman asking the question, does Raul realize for many reasons the NRA declared bankruptcy last year? Yes, some of the money was misused by the NRA president, but it doesn't appear the gun lobby bailed them out. I will say that I have my personal issues with the NRA. I don't become a member of advocacy organizations in general because of, well, reasons involved of what I do professionally here. It would raise questions that I would rather just not even be involved in here, even if I find myself agreeing with that or other standpoints. But even when it comes to actual firearms advocacy or, education, those kind of things. The education is one of the better things coming out of the NRA even to this day, but their actual lobbying efforts, even if you are in favor of lobbying efforts along those lines, tend to be a bit lackluster in my mind, which is why, well, when we've talked about these issues, we tend to also talk with other organizations. I will be perfectly honest. Calvin Williams saying that when I mentioned a lot of comments coming in, it's not all. You can see the comments for yourself over on our social media pages and, judge for yourself. Let's put it that way. Well, again, a lot more that we'll get to here. On Grimm saying, so only Democrats do something to prevent death. Only here's what you want to hear. I mean, again, maybe it is more what you're talking about there. Anyway, if you want to leave your own comments, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And again, those phone lines, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. I cannot think of anything as a whole, one solution that would solve these problems.
Yeah, that's a very simple way of putting it.
But, on the federal level, one can start by, like I said, mandatory, you have to be 21 to buy any type of firearm. And then this may come as a surprise to people, but at the federal level, why not reinstate the draft? Somebody needs to teach these young people discipline and how to be good citizens.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of national service, essentially what you're talking about there, because the draft is more specifically for wartime use, but the idea of I mean, it's been floated a couple of times, not just for military service, but also for like, essentially think of it like a AmeriCorps on steroids, essentially, but there being some kind of component on it. Well, let's just say there's a lot of other countries that we do ally ourselves with. Israel comes to mind, though that's a very specific example that has a lot of its own baggage with it, but that there are other countries out there that do this kind of a thing for, well, a variety of reasons. And the idea of having kind of a base level of knowledge and education and training outside of just, primary and secondary education has been floated a few times. It's been proven pretty unpopular, but well, in light of situations like this, it's certainly worth reevaluating.
Yes, sir. Well, we as society apparently are failing with these kids, and I cannot think of anything better than a drill sergeant, giving these kids a swift kick in the butt to get them in line. But then again, that's my opinion.
Certainly.
Yes. Also, one of your callers mentioned that Guardian program. Well, like I said, I think local school districts need to push, once again, for that school marshal program. It's up to the local superintendents, and you don't carry the school marshals do not carry their weapons in the open. They are concealed, and the idea is who they are, that's confidential. That stuff is not released to the public.
Yeah, you were the one mentioned, I do recall now, the idea of this. And there's been I've been looking at some comparisons between the two, the Guardian versus Marshall plans, essentially here. And the idea between them, I mean, costs and specific ways of implementation are interesting differences here, I will agree.
Well, it is okay. The school marshal program is codified into law, and it is voluntary. And then my next point was I know Joaquin Castro is asking the FBI to investigate this incident. Well, let me let people know I cannot think of a better agency than the Texas Rangers to handle this investigation. There's and I'll be blunt. There's no better group of investigators in the country than the Rangers.
Interesting. Don't actually know offhand what the process to get them involved is. I assume the governor would have to order it at that point here. But yeah, given the inconsistencies that have been happening here, yeah, I'd have to agree that clearly some outside look into this is probably going to be necessary. I mean, heck, some of the inconsistencies have even come from the governor, unfortunately. Not that he has contradicted himself, but what he has said has therefore been contradicted by, that news conference today.
Well, the Rangers answer to the senior captain of the Rangers, and then from there he answers to the director of the Department of Public Safety. But I do favor background checks. However, unfortunately, a background check overlooked Hunter Biden's drug use when he bought a handgun.
Yeah, so this is. I mean, that situation, is one of them, but also, what was it? The Sutherland Springs shooter that did went into the church there, eventually did get stopped by someone who, took it upon themselves. But another story there, that, of course, individual who had been on the streets of El Paso prior to that incident, and is just a little bit hair-raising for myself here, of course, fell through the cracks of the system because should not have been able to purchase it on his own. So when people say that we need to enforce the laws that we have, that's one of the things that I think of, because I know people saying, well, I'm not sure what's more we could do. And really, if you got laws in the books that would address some of these situations, among others, even that one, because there would have been lookups of actual, the one here actually recently this week would have been lookups of the residents in question there, and the fact that there would not be allowed to be any in the homes. Clearly, there are gaps in the system that are significant. And they keep coming up here. So that's one of the aspects of the idea of, enforced laws in the books comes to mind for me, even if there might be needing to be further adjustments. I know waiting periods aren't terrifically popular with those that are in favor of gun rights, but just the preponderance of those that are then coming out after immediately having bought something, because it's never really the long-term owners that seem to be the issue here on the balance.
Yes. Well, the Sutherland Springs shooter, he was stopped by another guy with an AR-15, and his information didn't get into the national database. And then two other points I wanted to make. With regard to Raul, he always likes to blame Republicans, but I will remind him that Trump banned bump stocks during his administration. And also, Raul mentioned a regulated militia yesterday. Well, he might want to read, and for his edification, read Title 10 USC Section 246. He might be surprised as who and what comprises the regulated militia and the organized militia and the unorganized militia. He might be surprised.
There are, these are not just general use phrases. They are very specific legal terms. When we are talking about militia, the organized or unorganized, and even states have even their own further definitions when it comes to it. I do believe Texas being one of them.
Yes. Well, anyway, Andrew, I turn the mic over to you. Great talking to you all. And once again, I stand with the people of Uvalde County. And, this is tragic. But anyway, take care.
Yeah, appreciate the point in the call. Definitely do so as well. You have a good one. All right. We'll squeeze in one more quick call if we get a chance to. Yeah, I'll get just enough time before this next break. Again, that number to call if you're wanting to chime in yourself, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Kelvin Williams saying, on my background checks, I was in prison while I was in the Army, parenthetical, and I sold cocaine before I joined the Marine Corps. Yeah, those are mutually exclusive situations there. So, I mean, I've known people not exactly that kind of a situation, but that have in other situations have gotten records mixed up, the whole efficiency of bureaucracy kind of situation, and having to spend a hell of a lot of time to actually get it fixed. So, yeah, problems with the systems are certainly evident here. But again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We have Al in the Northeastern line here with us right now. Al, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for taking my call once again. And your last caller did touch on a couple of things. I'm sure our brother Raul in the Northeast, he's probably one of my neighbors, has some morality down deep somewhere, but he needs to call your crisis line and get help for this hate, Republican, and pathologically hate syndrome he has for Trump, because I guess he doesn't look at reality the same way that most of the Americans do on this planet. But let me get to the other point, and maybe Raul might want to peel his Beto sticker off of his car after the performance of Beto in front of the grieving people of Texas and the governor. There was a former federal agent, Victor Avila from El Paso, who was on the Sean Hannity show that was being hosted by Joe Pags, who labeled or said that Beto was a coward. Well, he's more than a coward. He's a pandering sycophant, and I hope all of Texas knows now his true colors, because he showed his true character yesterday. And you can go into many different sources on the internet and view the tape of what this fool is doing.
Yeah, I listened to it yesterday. We did not play the clips because I have no level of confidence that I caught all of the, profanity that happened during it. And yeah, you can find it from many people, including our news partners, what exactly happened during that initial news conference with the governor. I want to say Ted Cruz was there as well, as long as the Attorney General and Lieutenant Governor.
Well, Andrew, this Beto, he seems to think that he deserves, kind of like the Clintons, that he deserves to be in public office, and he hasn't got the brains of a sack of hammers. And another point is, how come his background has never been vetted either? Because I know there's some real skeletons in his closet.
I would say that it's come up, a couple of times here. I know that particularly during the Senate campaign, I want to say it came up primarily because there were, among other things, there were ads being put on that. So that has been displayed. I think, drunk driving incidents, among things like that have certainly come up.
One last quick point. He's among these intellectually bankrupt Democrats who, by the way, if you are a celebrity or a politician, they are protected by good guys with guns. We can't afford our children the same thing. don't know if I've mentioned this, Andrew, but I was a public school teacher here in El Paso for 30 years in the middle schools. I retired a few years after Columbine happened. And despite my outcries about needing measures taken in my schools, especially, there were at least 15 or 20 ways you could get into that school if you wanted to. You know, we need to harden our rules and despite what the bleeding hearts on the left are saying, to the detriment of all legal gun owners in this country. And by the way, Andrew, the NRA is the oldest civil rights organization in this country. And if it weren't for the NRA, England would have lost both world wars. I don't know if you know that, but you need to go back and read history. Anyway, I have some more points. I'll bring them up tomorrow if you let me get on the air again, Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for the point on the call. Do appreciate it. Again, I'm not totally opposed to the NRA. I mean, I think, again, some of their more active things that they still do, particularly when it comes to, you know, training and safety, are very important. The whole Eddie the Eagle program, when it is actually implemented, I think is a good one here. I'm just saying recent advocacy, let's just say they've been outstripped by other groups in my estimation. So not anything about the history of the NRA. I don't think it served no purpose, but I mean, there's, well, as was pointed out by a different commenter, current situations, well, if you don't keep up with your history in their own right, things can go awry here. All right, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the comments, more of the calls, more of the discussion here about the things affecting us here in the borderland. So again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. If you're looking for a great way to make sure you're making great food for you and your family, family time is definitely important. We talk a lot about values, and what better place to do that around the dinner table, and what better way to make sure everyone's happy around the dinner table than by putting together those home-cooked meals involving the great ingredients they have over with our friends at Enhanced Flavors. Enhanced Flavors has over 40 different locally available varieties of extra virgin olive oil, flavored olive oils, and balsamic vinegar sourced from the best places of the world and can be brought right to your front door. You can find them online at enhancedflavors.com. Again, that's enhanced with a D, flavors.com, or out in the community at some of your favorite events, including the arts and farmers markets that go on in the area. Specifically, they'll be out at the Southern New Mexico Wine Fest. That'll be happening at the Las Cruces State Fairgrounds coming up this weekend, actually, for Memorial Day. So be sure to go check them out, seeing their full spread of everything. I always find something, well, that I didn't expect to find in the first place. So find them there, or again, online for all the details, enhancedflavors.com. Again, that's enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. It's a conversation parents wish they did not have to have with their children, discussing deadly school shootings. Parents are often afraid to bring up these topics because they don't want to worry their kids. But psychologists say avoiding the conversation can make the situation even scarier for children. Dr. Jamie Howard is a senior clinical psychologist with the Child Mind Institute. She says these conversations can start with children at around school age. Dr. Howard says parents can remind their kids that statistically, this violence is still very unlikely to happen at their school, and they can talk about what safety measures are in place. And every time there's a mass shooting somewhere in America, it reminds many in the borderland about our own traumatic mass shooting on August 3rd, 2019. If the psychological wounds of that tragedy feel fresh again after what happened in Uvalde, there are a variety of mental health services available locally. We provided a list of them on our website at cbs4local.com.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso Fire is responding to a crash with injuries. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound north of Edgemere at RC Poe Road. North Desert Boulevard northbound north of Trans Mountain at Los Muchis. That earlier crash is off to the left. Border Highway eastbound at Padres. A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. An injury accident West Wind Drive at Escondido. Take Belvedere or Wrestler as your alternate. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. As we get closer to our holiday weekend, our area of high pressure settling in will increase our temperatures to triple digits for some parts of the borderland. It also brings us some light winds, so some of that smoke will settle into the area trapped underneath this high over the next couple days. But other than that, going into the holiday weekend, we need to be mindful of burning things because we are still looking at a high fire danger with our extreme heat and winds.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Need to hire? Need Indeed. Their hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates in one place. Sponsor a job and immediately get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
On the podcast Paradise Lost, Crime in Miami, 2 South Florida natives examine their state's most notorious true crime cases. Each episode exposes the dark underbelly of the Sunshine State.
Beaches, nightlife, and tropical weather may be what folks think of when they think Florida. But as Miami natives, we like to say that South Florida is a sunny place for shady people.
Listen to Paradise Lost, Crime in Miami on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
COVID-19 has affected millions across the U.S. If you and your family get sick, you may be wondering how you can help. Learn more about Active 6, a research study looking at potential treatment options for COVID-19 that may help people with COVID feel better faster. You may be able to help from the comfort of your own home. We'll mail medications to you and you'll complete surveys online. Learn more at active6study.org/radio. That's ACTIV6study.org/radio.
Coming up on the Ben Ferguson podcast, is it possible that the Democrats and the Biden administration are purposely destroying our economy? Is it so they can gain more control over your life? That's exactly what they're doing, and I'm going to prove it. Download the Ben Ferguson podcast now.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson podcast.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM, and your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today. A lot of ways to get at us on the program. Again, the phone number open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in as well. Barbara Carrasco saying, our hearts break for all those who lost a loved one in the tragic shooting in Uvalde. The hole in their hearts will never heal. The precious angels were taken prematurely. My prayers are with those hurting. May their comfort come from our Creator. I mean, absolutely. Agree with that. I mean, entirely. And RJ adding on there, 22 dead now in Uvalde as a teacher and victim. Omar Garcia is joined by her husband, Joe, who died of a broken heart, literally a heart attack, but the family has called it as such here. So that situation continues to evolve. And again, just because it was mentioned there, the situation at Bel Air High School seems to have concluded with no actual incident. There was an armed response happening there based on apparently text threats that happened, but no apparently actual incident happening in that area, but on edge would be an understatement here. Eric Von Holstein Rathlow commenting over on the Facebook, I graduated from Eastwood in 81. We had armed guards there. That was when school shootings were unheard of. We needed to harden our schools. Evil people pick easy targets for their dastardly deeds. Find myself very much in agreement with the idea that I appreciate the bit of perspective there on it as well over time, because, well, okay, even if there was to be, and I do not support this end, so don't mistake me, but even if there was a way to, again, wave a magic wand and remove all, well, ability for violence to be done to other people, specifically firearms, we would still find people trying to find ways to do bad, evil things to other people. And, you know, what's often talked about in criminology terms, the idea of what makes a crime, motive, opportunity, intent, those kind of things. So removing at least one part of that equation as much as possible when it comes to our schools, the opportunity makes a lot of sense here. So sure, there might be other political goals that can be met or baked into this, but not including that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Ion Grimm commenting that unfortunately there are a lot of people who think just like Beto, like the ones that saved his seat so he wouldn't be detected until the news press had started. The conference, I think you meant there, but going on to say, so very disrespectful to the families who lost their babies. Beto had a very politically filled heart. Even some of those that I know that would otherwise agree with generally the positions of, well, that wing of politics, if not Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke specifically, are saying that, yeah, that was a stunt. That was something that happened to, I mean, there have been others there that have been saying, hooray, speaking truth to power kind of thing. But in terms of actually getting things done, that don't see that getting much towards besides an election bid. I mean, again, truly, if it was going to be something going towards the idea of coming together and finding solutions, that often happens in quiet conversations, not necessarily behind closed doors, but not out in the open and in news conferences. Let's put it that way. So that was truly the goal. I don't know if that was going to be something to help achieve it. Black is saying, look how many lives Timothy McVeigh took without using a gun. I mean, that are particularly disturbed individuals. Kevin Williams further saying school shootings were unheard of 3 decades ago. 3 decades ago, there were fewer gun laws. It's a mental health issue, not a gun issue. Again, I think that there is a mental health component here, even if, as many questions there still are about the actual timeline in Uvalde. I know there's been a lot of armchair and Facebook detectives trying to divine anything out of the suspected shooter in this case. Now deceased, of course, and there have been some misfires on that. Anything you've probably seen about the background of this person that hasn't come out from official sources is probably flawed at this point. A lot of jumping of the gun, so to speak here. No unfortunate pun intended. But something I keep coming back to is respect, both for yourself and for others, but also of firearms here. Because, I mean, what does it look like? I mean, Hollywood is a special place in a lot of ways because find the people, the actors involved with it, some of the most vehement opposition to people having anything. While, yes, they will often have armed security on their own way, but throughout their movies, they will have, firearms as almost these, I'm going to go even beyond what I said before, almost magical talismans, able to banish the bad things out there. Honestly, a lot of Hollywood movies have a very fascist bent to them. That's, the hero wins, not because of any mortal intent, but because he has overwhelming force of either power, beating up other people, or force of arms, and therefore is able to do the right thing solely through those means. So, yeah, you want to talk about some core issues going into this. Now, I'm not going to say that movies and those kind of things on their own are doing it, but once you start combining a lot of these efforts and a lot of these factors, I think you start getting closer to even just kind of gaming it out, the situation we have here as well. Ortiz saying that we hadn't heard from him for a while, referring to Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke there, had to do something to make the news. I mean, yeah, that was pretty transparently an effort towards re-election. Whether you agree with that or not, up to you. I know that there are some out there that do, but yeah, it wasn't exactly a come-together moment. If you agreed with him, you were going to continue to agree with him. If you didn't agree with him, you definitely weren't going to agree with him after that point. But let's go back to those phone lines right now, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. We have Jerry in Northwest on the line here with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, sir, for taking my call. And my heart does break over this for the people in Uvalde and that school, Rob School.
Absolutely.
And the children and the parents, grandparents, so on and so forth. Andrew, what's the definition of narcissistic personality disorder?
So I'll clarify that I am not a mental health professional, but essentially an overwhelming sense of self-importance and concern primarily for yourself here. Because, yeah, it is... I mean, I've known some people that may have had it, but essentially, just from the Mayo Clinic, one of several types of personality disorders in which people have an inflated sense of their own importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and a lack of empathy for others, according to the Mayo Clinic here.
Would you say that describes Beto O'Rourke, Francis Robert, yesterday in his outburst?
Again, depending on the amount of, why you think he did it would vary for that a little bit. I'll say a little bit further, though, that I think anyone who ends up running for public office has probably a twinge of this because true servant leadership is pretty rare. But I know that is definitely something being ascribed to him in this. And, I'll just say I'll definitely call it a pretty transparent political purpose.
Well, I think if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So he's mentally ill. We'll just put it right there. And the way I call him, And I know he made a big stink over there, but you don't go to somebody's funeral and start yelling because somebody did something wrong. And that's exactly what he did over there. So that is way disrespectful. And he lied about the guns portion. So there's no way anybody in Texas can trust him. He's double-minded.
Again, I think if you agreed with him, because I know that there are, including the local Democrat Party, have been saying that, speaking truth to power kind of aspect to it. And so if you agreed with them, probably going to continue to agree with them. If you disagreed with them, probably going to harden the feelings that way as well, is my expectation of the outcome of that, and probably any further such incidents.
Well, they need to look up what that means, narcissistic personality disorder, then go look in the mirror, because it's exactly what he's got. That means he's mentally ill. And I know everybody's mentally ill slightly, because that's what they teach in the law enforcement academies, that you're going to come across people that are mentally ill. And I believe that the shooter was mentally ill, and I believe it came from lack of a father, and part of it might be CRT training in the schools. This critical race theory could have something to do with it too. You reap what you sow. Well, thank you, sir, for allowing me to speak my mind.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Bye.
I think that there's, again, a lot of questions still in this whole Uvalde situation, the timeline on its own, leading to a lot of question marks given these conflicting news conferences that we have. So I'm holding off on commenting further on that, except for, what factors we do know, of course, in some of the, aftermath of the situation. But otherwise, I think that anyone who runs for public office is probably going to have a twinge or something like this. But also that idea, just going back to that quote I mentioned earlier in the show, we've never met a truly sane human being. Everyone out there's got something wrong with them. That's the simple answer. Not sure if CRT plays into this, given that it was, given the makeup of the community and what we do know about the alleged shooter so far. But let's just say this. I do think that anyone who is willing to walk into a room and kill not even just their fellow man, but that many of their most vulnerable in their own community clearly has something very wrong with them, and probably before this point. They call that at all, well, they're just having a really bad day. Yeah, that doesn't cut it. All right, we got to take that last break of the hour right now. I'll tell you what we got coming up for you on the show here, and, get to some of those recorded calls here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Closing out the show after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Fire is responding to a crash with injuries. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound north of Edgemere at RC Poe Road. North Desert Boulevard northbound north of Trans Mountain at Los Muchis. That earlier crash is off to the left. Border Highway eastbound at Padres. A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. An injury accident West Wind Drive at Escondido. Take Belvedere or Wrestler as your alternate. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Need to hire? Need Indeed. Their hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates in one place. Sponsor a job and immediately get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
The job market is competitive right now, so you need to be competitive to attract top talent. If you're trying to fill open positions at your business, iHeartMedia is here to help. Use radio and digital targeting to find fresh, passive candidates currently in the workforce. These candidates are listening right now, looking for new opportunities. Together, we can let the community know you're hiring. Visit iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org. Babbel.org.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're speaking another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
That's going to about do it us for here today. I mean, I know we've got a lot more to get to here, but don't worry, Free for All Friday is coming up, in which we will be taking your comments and calls throughout both hours of the show. Can be seen as a little bit of a dip into it here today, but we kind of throw off all restrictions on what topics we get into, what we focus on, and we'll solely be focusing on what y'all bring up. Just keep it clean there for us tomorrow here. A couple of comments I want to get to here before we end the show here on that other issue we brought up today of definite concern. Maria comment saying, does the city have a plan in place for the onslaught with 60,000 waiting in Juarez? Why was the situation not at the top of the agenda? Will plenty of individuals push their way in? A serious issue that needs to be addressed prior to the long holiday weekend. Pablo Carrasco saying, I'm not sure if Mayor Leeser has said anything, but County Judge Samaniego, paraphrase, said, let them in. We know what we're doing. We know where to take them. What a plan. Now, don't you feel secure? If not, vote for Giner. Referring there to Guadalupe Giner, the independent candidate who is attempting to appear on the ballot for November. So that's one of the issues going on here. And, of course, if you want to leave us a comment after a show or in between shows here, you can do so by calling into the pound 250 line. Again, really simply, you dial pound 250 on your phone. It'll ring. You'll be asked to say a keyword. Just say Talk El Paso. Leave your own message, much like this.
This is Lucia Frankie. You cannot be serious. Did you hear what that moron senator of yours, Stud Cancun Quad, said? His safety idea for schools? Close all the doors on the schools except for just one door. Well, what kind of idiocy is that? How do you people vote for this moron? It's beyond me. I don't get it. Somebody share with me what is so exciting about voting for this moron. Let me know that.
Again, I don't think that the necessarily qualification for office here was based on Ted Cruz's ability to design buildings. But I will say, having visited at least one elementary school, actually, in this community, that being Reyes Elementary, having it's, well, more along those lines, there are still plenty of doors because you still need egress in case there's like a fire in the school. You can't have only one way in or out, but you only want one way, secured way in, and the rest of them otherwise closed out from the outside. That is essentially, to my understanding and my experience, how that school was built. So I think that there is something more there, even if for older schools that might be, well, complete revamping of it here. We got one last quick call we're going to squeeze in here right now. We do have Judy on the west side. Judy, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. You were saying earlier that the local Democrats thought that Beto was just grand, speaking truth to power when he interrupted that press conference that the governor was having. Well, as it turned out, it was the mayor of Uvalde, Texas, who was furious with Beto and got up on his walker and walked to the front of the stage and just hurled an epithet at Beto, which I cannot repeat on radio. Mm-hmm. But he was furious. He was furious with Beto, that Beto would use the deaths of these children and these teachers to advance his own political career. And that's what I have to say about this man. He is a self-absorbed narcissist.
All right, well, thank you for that point there. I do appreciate the point in the call. We'll have to leave it there for today, but consider that a good lead-in for tomorrow for Free for All Friday, when we'll be taking those comments and calls throughout the program here. Free speech is what we do, and we'll continue doing it every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Let's start with some good news in El Paso traffic. I-10 westbound at Schuster, that accident is cleared. All lanes are back open on the westbound 10. I-10 westbound at McRae, an accident reported. There's a crash at Yarborough, northbound at the 10 Gateway, and it's affecting northbound traffic north of the 10 Gateway. And an injury accident downtown Santa Fe, south of the I-10 at Prospect Street. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic, but if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Make the right choice for your house when it comes to windows and doors. The Window Depot provides over 1,000 in-stock vinyl windows, interior and exterior doors, plus all the supplies you'll need for installation and trim to complete the job, all at the lowest prices in town. Visit thewindowdepot.com to find a location near you. That's
News on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The President and First Lady Jill Biden will travel to Uvalde, Texas on Sunday. That's the site of this week's deadly mass shooting at an elementary school. White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre called the tragedy horrific.
As a parent, it is unfathomable to me that this happened.
Jean-Pierre called on Congress to pass legislation to curb rampant gun violence and argued protecting children shouldn't be a partisan issue. Students in Michigan are showing support for Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. Today, Oxford High School students staged a walkout in response to the mass shooting. This comes after 4 Oxford High School students died in a shooting on November 30th. The National Rifle Association convention will still happen this weekend in Texas. Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner told reporters Thursday he won't cancel the event set to start tomorrow at the George R. Brown Convention Center. Turner said Wednesday potential lawsuits kept him from forcing the gathering from being moved. It's supposed to feature Texas Governor Greg Abbott, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, and former President Trump. Oklahoma is now the first state to stop offering abortions. Lisa Taylor has more.
All providers halted the procedure as soon as Republican Governor Kevin Stitt signed a bill yesterday. He says it will protect a baby's life and that of the mother from the moment of conception. The law bans a woman from ending her pregnancy unless it's the result of rape or if there's an emergency. This comes as the Supreme Court may overturn the decades-old Roe v. Wade decision soon.
Lisa Taylor reporting. Pennsylvania is spending over $1 million to recount votes for the Republican nominee for an open U.S. Senate seat. The race is between David McCormick and Mehmet Oz. No injuries are reported after a fire erupted aboard a cruise ship that had left from Florida. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Former President Trump must give testimony in New York State's civil probe into his financial dealings. Natalie Migliori has more.
A state appeals court is upholding a Manhattan judge's original ruling to subpoena Trump and 2 of his children to answer questions under oath in Attorney General Letitia James's investigation. In a statement, James claimed victory, vowing to continue following the facts of the case to ensure no one can evade the law. However, the Trump family could still fight the ruling if they take it to the highest court of appeals.
The CDC is confirming 9 monkeypox cases in 7 states: New York, Massachusetts, Florida, Utah, Washington, California, and Virginia. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says all 9 cases are among gay and bisexual men and other men who have sex with men. Drivers are seeing the highest gas prices ever ahead of this weekend's holiday travel. Here's Dina Kodiak.
AAA updated the national average overnight to $4.60 a gallon. Despite the pain at the pump, this is expected to be the busiest travel weekend since the pandemic began. According to AAA, nearly 40 million people are headed out of town for Memorial Day, and most will drive. Spokesperson Robert Sinclair says that's 3 million more than last year, despite the high prices for gas, airfare, and hotels.
People have been cooped up for the past couple of years with COVID restrictions and lockdowns, and I think they're making up for lost time now by getting out and doing something.
More than 12 million people are expected to fly starting today through Monday, which is up 25% from last year. I'm Dina Kodiak.
A group of people in Florida have now set a new record for the world's largest game of freeze dance. Over 1,300 people participated in the dance while at the 2022 National Senior Games in Fort Lauderdale. To play freeze dance, players must dance until the music stops, and once it does, they're all supposed to remain frozen in place until the music resumes once again. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
On the new true crime podcast Betrayal, a woman chronicles her fairy tale romance gone horribly wrong. Her husband's secret life destroyed their marriage, shook their community, and ultimately sent him to prison.
Going through Spence's emails, Snapchat, whatever I could get my hands on. Just a punch in the gut every single time.
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Search, browse, and email privately, all for free with the DuckDuckGo app.
Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 on News Radio 690 KTSM, breaking down the impact of the news on the Borderland and beyond. Brought to you in part by Mission Del Rey Southwest, souvenirs, gifts, and decor. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
Keyboard Cat, Hamilton the Pug, and Toast Meets World. These are some of the internet's most beloved pets. With millions of YouTube views, shares, Instagram likes, followers, and fans across the globe. But what do all these amazing pets have in common? Their stories started in a shelter. Start your story. Adopt a dog or cat today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a shelter or adoptable pets near you. Training that pet to play the keyboard? Well, that's entirely up to you. Visit theshelterpetproject.org and hear more about Hamilton the Pug, Toast, and Keyboard Cat's amazing adoption stories. Start a story, adopt a shelter or rescue pet today. Your perfect pet is just a click away at theshelterpetproject.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.